This is Bronco Nation News Live. The best interviews, the most informed opinions, the latest breaking news, all from the top Boise State insiders. Today's broadcast is coming from the Cutwater Spirits Canned Cocktail Studios. Check out one of their more than 30 flavors of pre-mixed premium cocktails at your local gas station or grocery store. Cutwater Canned Cocktails is perfect for your next game day tailgate party. Now, here's four-time NSMA Idaho Sports Writer of the Year, BJ Rains, with another edition of Bronco Nation News Live.
Well, we're continuing our live coverage, Mountain West Media Days, here in Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino, the palace that is Circa Resort and Casino. Love this place. I'm excited for this interview. We've been talking to a lot of players. We'll talk to the coaches tomorrow, the commissioner, but the officials, the referees, they don't get you don't get a chance to talk to them much. There's some new rules this year, some new things we want to talk about, and the new Mountain West coordinator of officials, Mike Defee, is with us. And if you have a referee question or a question about the rules, the rules this year, go ahead and drop that into the YouTube chat. And we got 10 minutes or so with Mike. We'll try to get your question answered. But Mike, welcome to the social media airwaves in Boise, Idaho. Bronco Nation News, how's it going, man?
Going well. Happy to be here.
We appreciate you coming on. You said you were 19 years on field officiating, 4 Big 12 title games. The 2017 was it CFP or BCS back then?
No, it was CFP. Okay. It was national championship.
And that was who was playing in that
Alabama
one?
Clemson.
Okay, so the Alabama Clemson game 2017. You were the referee, the lead official for that game. Now you're going to be working with the Mountain West. You mentioned you've done a lot of games in Boise. I want to ask you about that. But what is kind of your quick background for folks, and then how you landed this job here with the Mountain West?
Well, I got into officiating like everyone else does in high school football, and I was late coming into officiating. I was about 33 years old when I got into it. I always loved the game. It's always been a passion of mine, and when I started officiating, I realized how little I knew about the rules and officiating. And so I started going to camps to get better, because I never wanted to cost anyone a game because of my incompetence. And as I started going to camps and went to as many as I could, I got better. And it was around 2000. I was at a camp and I ran into Tim Millis. Tim was the supervisor official for Big 12, and he really took a liking to me and introduced me to Jim Harvey, who was supervisor for the Southland. And Jim had me work a scrimmage for him and hired me. And I started officiating college in 2001 for 5 years there. 4 as a back judge, 1 as a referee. And then Tim Millis hired me in January of 2006. Well, he retired in March of 6, and Walt Anderson took the program over. So Walt inherited me, and I stayed in that program all the way to 19. 4 years as a back judge, and the rest as a referee. So
what what are the big changes coming this year to college football? What should fans that are used to watching a college football game on a Saturday going to notice different?
Yeah, there's not a lot of huge rule changes like block and below the waist and the things that we've tweaked in the past. Primarily timing, the timing of the game. Our game has gotten where we're 178 to 180 plays a game, and we feel like we just need to shorten the game a little bit from a play standpoint. So every conference did a comprehensive timing study last year, and we turned all that into Steve Shaw. And so with the recommendation this year to the Rules Committee was to stop cutting the clock on first down, and that passed. So this year, outside of 2 minutes of the second and fourth quarter, when a team makes a first down, we will not stop the clock. The clock will continue to run. So inside from 2 minutes to the second, 2 minutes to the fourth, it'll stop like it always has. And then if the play ended in bounds, the clock will wind on the referees ready for play. So
you're talking, 10, 15 seconds maybe that's saved there? Or
yeah, what we anticipate based on the game study, we think that we're going to take 7 to 8 plays out of the game. And so, that's what we're trying to do, is to get it a little bit more manageable for the student athlete. So that's the biggest change. The other one is we're not going to have consecutive timeouts in a single dead ball period, which means you can't ice the kicker more than one timeout in a dead ball period. And then the other is we're not going to extend the quarter at the first and third quarter. So at the last play of either one of those quarters, and we have a foul that would have otherwise in prior years extended the game for an untimed down, we will just carry that over to the into the second or fourth quarter, and we're going to have some conversations. There's a little
you
bit
were
of
telling me
pushback.
there's some scenarios where that might not make sense.
Well, if, for example, if you're in a really windy situation, you're in Kansas and the wind's blowing 35 miles an hour, and you've got the wind at your back, and you run a play, and we have a foul that would normally have extended the quarter. For an untimed down, we're going to go to you may have you kicking into the wind as opposed downwind. So there's some scenarios where we're going to have some discussion on, but those are the three main rule changes. That there's some editorial changes, but nothing that is going to really be visible.
We had a question on here. Let's see where it was. Chase Love was wanting to ask about targeting, and obviously that's a big deal. Boise State's seen that in previous years, the last year in particular, that a couple of times where it just didn't seem as consistent. And that's just it's so hard to know what is and what isn't. And one guy up in a booth determines whether or not this young man can finish the game or have to sit part of the next game or whatever the rule's been. From your perspective, I guess, with targeting, what is being done or what needs to be done to try to make that a little more clear? And I guess just in general, the targeting rule and how it's enforced. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, let me go back to when targeting came in. I was the one. There's always one official that sits with the rules committee, not a voting member, but there to advise the committee on things. And so I was on the committee when targeting came in as a disqualification. I'm thinking it was around 12 or 13. Anyway, bottom line is what we're trying to do. The first thing, responsibility for an official, is the health and safety of our players, okay? And there's a lot of litigation that fans and people don't realize that are in the game behind the scenes, big litigation for head injuries and such. So the emphasis for targeting is trying to preserve the health of our players, okay? But targeting is not an easy call. But we're trying to get players to get their head, to the side, below their target, and as technology has gotten better, as you get lower, the Power 5 group have a lot more cameras. They have a lot more angles to be able to make better decisions. As you go down, Group of 5 or FCS, we get into less cameras and less angles. But that is the one play that replay can actually and is required to re-officiate the play to either confirm that it was in fact targeting or remove it. The other thing last year that helped eliminate some of the targeting is they defined crown of the helmet as a 6-inch circle centered on the button. So last year there were many hits that in prior years would have been called targeting because they occurred right up here on the front above the face mask. So again, I know it's controversial, but just try to understand what we're trying to do is eliminate some of the litigation, trying to keep Congress out of our game, and to try to help protect the long-term health and safety of our players, both offensive and defensive.
One change I did like was that if a player gets kicked out of the game, he can at least stay on the sideline. I know in the past he had to go in the locker room and just sit there by himself. And back then, in college locker rooms, there's no TV to watch the game and all this stuff, especially if you're on the road team or something. And it just seemed like kind of making that kid do the walk of shame out of the stadium didn't make a lot of sense.
That to me was more it than anything else, was not to further embarrass the player any further than what and the game's fast, and we have to make real-time decisions on the field, and again, we're fortunate that replay now, and I'll tell you this, I fully expect that we're going to have more camera angles to look this year. I talked to our video folks, and we're going to be going to collaborative replay for the first time in the Mountain West, and so
which means what?
Well, it means I'm going to be in Dallas at the Replay Operation Command Center monitoring the game. So when a game gets stopped, we're going to be able to, myself and Ronnie Ford is my replay coordinator. He's the best replay guy in the country. And he and I will be in there monitoring the games. We expect our replay team to do their job, stop the game when it's appropriate. And we'll be monitoring it, looking at that play in conjunction with them. We're not going to interfere unless they're going down the wrong path or we feel like they're making the wrong decision. Then we can step in and correct that decision. So,
we'll be in there. You'll have a headset with a headset line into the replay room or what?
Correct. Okay. And I'll be able to see the video that they're seeing.
So will you, are you like the entire time talking to them, or do you only you hear what their call is and go, oh, hold on a second, no, that's not right.
Well, we're going to monitor. Like I said, we expect the people at the field to do their job, and we're going to monitor that process. If we feel like they're going down the wrong path or they didn't stop the game when we should have stopped the game. Now, we're a little bit of a disadvantage when we're in the command center because we're looking at the TV version, okay? So they're there looking at the whole field. They have a much better opportunity to get the game stopped than we do. Okay. But if we see something that's egregious, feel like the game needs to be stopped, we will stop it from the command center as well. But our primary responsibility there is to make sure we're going down the right path and that we get to the right decision. If we don't, we'll step in.
So is Mike Defee the one we can now blame then when we don't like a replay call?
Yep, you sure can.
But not necessarily. Every call doesn't mean that you've approved it or stamped it if a call's made.
Yeah, that's correct. Calls that don't come to the replay booth, replay is not meant to correct every action on the field. We correct the things that are correctable by rule, but, we certainly have limitations of what we can get involved with.
Somebody wants to know if you guys look at film to learn from bad calls.
Absolutely. I will tell you this, the tenet of our program is that we evaluate every play from every game. Our evaluator will go through, we usually evaluate 40 to 50 plays, draw a written evaluation, not just the calls that were made, calls that should have been made, maybe we were mechanically unsound, we get away with something. And so what happens is when that game is evaluated, those 50 plays, the evaluator, when the official is looking at the write-up, it's in green font and there's a grade associated with the play. I will come in and look at every one of those single plays to make sure, for consistency, to make sure that I agree with the grade. And if anything, I need to add anything to the play, that font will be in red. So the official and everyone else and the evaluator will learn from me, just because that's where we want to be. Is we want to be consistent. We want to be in real time. So if you make a call on a Saturday, my goal is to have that corrected for you before the next game. I don't want you going on thinking what you called was correct. Right. So we want to make sure that we get that in as real time as we can. But to answer your question, or the caller's question, we do look at every one of those plays, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
So do you do the scheduling as well?
I do.
How does that work in terms of, now we know you have the alliance. There's an alliance, correct?
Correct.
How does that work? And then the fact that you are just working with the Mountain West now, how does that work in terms of assigning your officials?
Yeah, the officials are assigned from the Mountain West Conference, and it is a Mountain West program. The alliance, where the alliance comes in, is that we're trying to be aligned in how we train, develop, and evaluate, so that as we progress officials through our program from the Southland Conference, Mountain West American, to the Big 12, that we're doing things in a similar fashion. We're looking at things similarly. We're training similarly. We're evaluating similarly. Now, where the difference is, and we're getting ready to go to Dallas tomorrow. Our clinic starts tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday in Dallas, and where we'll all collaborate. But once we leave there, things that occur within the Mountain West Conference, I'll address specific to the Mountain West Conference.
Okay.
Follow me? So if, for example, the Big 12 seeing a tendency, they're having trouble with offensive pass interference, and maybe we're having a little bit of an issue with defensive pass interference, I need to make sure that I am in real time, because I'm a very analytical person too. I want to make sure we're getting that information back to our officials to correct any real-time issues that we're having.
So in terms of how you assign officials, is it, now, the crews in college stay together, right, during the season?
They do.
And how does that work in terms of, is it usually, is there a maximum? Is it usually just once a year the same crew sees the same team, or how does that work?
We try to keep it to a maximum of 3 games, seeing a team no more than 3 games in a given year. And it, that becomes, and I track that. So when I build my schedule, I have another spreadsheet where I'm tracking every referee and what team they have and how many times they have it per game. And so this past year, the Big 12 Mountain West Southland relationship, the Big 12 had 8 crews, but it didn't have as many teams as to need 8 crews. So some of those crews work Mountain West games. Well, this year, now that you've got Texas, Oklahoma staying for an extra year, and you've got the other 4 teams coming in, they need all 8 crews. So that left only 5 crews for the Mountain West. And the Mountain West has always needed more than 5, but they relied on the Big 12. So we hired 2 new crews into the Mountain West. And what I did is I went in and redistributed veteran leadership throughout all of those crews. I didn't want to have 2 crews with a bunch of guys. And everybody we hired were college officials, but I wanted to have a balance between the veteran leadership and some of the newer officials.
Okay. So none of the crews that have maybe been together in the Mountain West will be a little different. So.
Yeah, and I went back and talked to every referee to talk about the good, bad, and ugly, who they had on their crew, what they liked, what they didn't like.
Yeah.
We did a lot of evaluation. So if they had someone that was kind of the person that they really depended on, I left them with that crew. Okay. So we did a lot of chemistry is important.
I feel like you'd be seeing referees do Big 12 games and then do a Mountain West game. So that's not going to be the case anymore?
That won't be the case.
Okay.
That was part of the change that the Big 12 made. Now, it's not to say that we can't use them if we have openings and need them, but the crews themselves will not be coming into the league like they have in the past.
We'll have 7 different crews, and there's six Mountain West. I guess there's different amount during non-conference play.
Correct. We'll be a little bit light. And now the Big 12 is using some of our officials in weeks 1. Week 2, we actually have 8 games with 7 crews. I'm bringing a referee in and using. We have a supplemental roster as well. People that we have some that are really good football officials, and we want to give them opportunities to see how they perform.
So they're in another conference.
Yeah, they're working in other conferences. Southland Conference. They could be in Big Sky, OVC, any of those, and so we'll use them in some of our non-conference games.
How do you avoid bias when officiating games? That's what somebody asked here. Do you have anything in terms of not letting somebody from a hometown or a school or anything, any stipulations like that? And what how does all that come into play?
We have a conflict of interest form. Everyone has to complete it wherever they went to school. So we avoid those things. I will tell you this. It's probably the bias is so overrated in college football. When you become a college official, you learn really quickly to leave all those things. When I watch a football game, all that goes away in terms of who your favorite was or wasn't. We work a team, and we don't care who wins. All we see is a white jersey and a red jersey, and we're trying to officiate the game, fairly. So I try to draw a parallel. Imagine if you were going to court and you walked into that judge. You want him to be fair and impartial. That's what we want to be. Is we want to have all of our people to be fair and impartial. And we track and do a lot of analytical. If we ever thought, and I will tell you this, as a person that's been a collegiate officiating in 20 years, I've never, ever suspected a person of being partial in any of my doings. You got different levels of competency. I'm not saying that isn't the case, but never an intentional bias.
So what's next, whether it be rules or the game itself or what's just next that's coming? Were there any rules that were talked about that did not happen that still could, or what's kind of the big thing coaches are talking about these days?
Oh, there's always things that's always on the forefront. They're always looking at injury trends. I don't think that there's any real pressing issues. I think that the impression I got from all of the coordinators and all of our meetings is that coaches, ADs, presidents are very happy with where the game is, other than the fact that they'd like to shorten it a little bit. So I don't think that there's any major, and I'll tell you what is on the forefront is technology. I think you're going to see in the coming years, sooner rather than later, where they're going to be able to communicate with a quarterback or a defensive player the way the NFL does.
Okay.
They've got to get the helmet certified, so they got to work out that kind of thing. But I can see that coming, and that'll help the game as well.
What about everyone wants to know what the first down spotting? You're talking about all this technology we have and all this stuff, and whether or not a team gets a first down, comes into some guy 50 feet away, running in there and trying to guess exactly where it was. I know that one of the USFL or one of those leagues, they attempted to put a chip in the ball, and then they got rid of it because they couldn't figure it out. Just with the goal line, I guess, also, and first down markers, like what can be done there? What do you make of the current setup where it's just so arbitrary?
Yeah, well, again, I will tell you this. This is where line of scrimmage officials have to work really, really hard, and the deep officials. Walt Anderson taught us many years ago about how to use your eyes and index. When a player goes down, what's his body position? Where's the ball in his hands at that moment? Because that's where the ball needs to be spotted. A lot of times people will watch in real action, and we'll have the ball spotted much shorter than what people will think. And if you go back and look at it in slow motion, it was like a double action. Their knees went down, and then they extended, went out. They were down by rule here with the ball in the right hand, 45 degrees. So we can get really, really accurate. I'm not sure. Down the road, we'll probably see technology eventually evolve. But think about this. The ball is a prolate spheroid. It's long. You can put it at the point of each. But is he ever carrying the ball where the ball's north-south? He's almost always got the ball where it's a 45-degree angle, right?
Yeah.
So it's not going to be exact unless you can figure out how to do something with the entire surface of the football.
Well, appreciate your time. It's fascinating stuff. But I got to ask you before we let you go. I mean, obviously done a lot of great things in your career, very well-known official, but you had social media in a buzz, man, back in 2017. You're smiling, you know where I'm going with this, but tell us just about that. And I know that it kind of blew up at that point. Everybody loved that, you had the tight shirt on and you were, did some arm curls before you came out for the game. But what did your wife like that? I know it wasn't the only time that's ever come up, but it obviously when you're doing the championship game, it became a bigger deal, and they were calling. I forget all the different things they were saying, but and I hate to say it, but when I saw the press release that you were hired, that was the first thing I thought of. What do you make about that? And are you a big weight room guy? You still benching pretty big, or?
I don't lift as much as I did. I had surgery on my right wrist about a year and a half ago, and so that's still rehabbing. So I haven't been in the gym as much as I used to be, but I was always a gym rat.
Come on, Mike.
But at the end of the day, what was funny is I've always been in pretty good shape and I always dress that way. But it kind of shows you how social media can work, because all of a sudden, a couple of people posting things in a game like that, and it just goes viral. I wasn't even aware of any of that until after the game, right? And so it was really. And I made the joke about that. I said, I didn't know America could get excited about a guy's arms. He's a 55-year-old man who's a grandfather, is about the size of someone's arms. But the one thing I'll say, I was always in really good shape. And for players and coaches, they look at you. They know you're putting in the work like they are in the gym, and it always gave you a little bit of credibility. You always got the benefit of the doubt. And my good friend Tom Quick was my umpire in the Big 12 for a number of years. He's over in the SEC, and he tells me all the time, he said, you ruined college football. Now every official out there is lifting weights, and they're all in
the Mountain West that I've seen doing some games. I
can't
think of his name.
Scott.
Yep.
And he just got picked up in the NFL.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah.
Good for him. That's cool. So were you going a smaller size than you should have on the jersey, or were the arms just too big to fit through there, or what?
Funny story. Kirk Herbstreit always gave me a lot of grief. He and I got to be, acquaintances. Yeah. And so the year after the national championship, I had a kickoff classic. I think it was Florida and Miami, and he's on the field. I made him come over and look at my shirt. I said, pull my tab back there and look at it. And he said, that's 2X. I said, well, look, let me explain something to you, Herbstreit. I'm not 6'3" like you. I'm 5'10". I do have broad shoulders, so I do wear a 2X. Okay, so if I didn't alter a 2X, it'd look like I had a dress on. So I taper my sides and I shorten the sleeves. Now I take a little bit of advantage and shorten the sleeve a little bit more. I said, you got to play to a person's strength.
Sure.
I'm 5'10".
Sure.
I'm never going to be 6'4".
Oh man, that's funny. Well, awesome interview. Thank you so much for your time. Best of luck with everything with the new gig here. And I'm a referee nerd. I am. I recognize a lot of the main referees, and more so in college basketball than football. I feel like college basketball, you see the same guys 5 or 6 times, and they can really impact the game sometimes more than folks realize. But no, I think it's a especially at the college level, when you're the back judge or whatever, it's a thankless job that no one really knows who you are unless you screw something up or don't want to know who you are. Right. And so I can't imagine the pressure that you guys as referees and officials face. So continued, success. Good luck at the clinic, and get them officiating. Hopefully we see some big. Oh, I got to ask you one more. I'm sorry to keep you, but you mentioned refereeing in Boise. Any stories about Boise or Chris Peterson, or what were your memories of reffing on the blue turf before we let you go?
I've worked many game in Boise. Always a great place to go. Love the blue field. Worked a lot of big games with Air Force and some of the bigger schools in the Mountain West there with Boise. I do have a memory of Chris Peterson when he was head coach. When you go to see him, you always go see the head coach first. And I was always trying to be respectful for the home team head coach, because they're doing recruiting at that time. So I always try to show up 2 or 3 minutes early before the 90 minutes. And Chris was always notorious about making you wait. So I waited the first time. Well, the second time I get there, and the guy, I don't remember who it was, football ops guy, he said, Chris will be here in a minute. I said, no. I said, they were playing Air Force. I said, I'm going to go see the Air Force coach, and then I'll come back or I'll catch him on the field. He said, no, wait a minute. Let me go get you. he was outside the door. He was waiting. He was going to make me wait. And I think that was a ploy to do that. So, but now a lot of great memories, a lot of great football. I have a lot of respect for the Boise program, and I'll tell you the Mountain West in general. I'll say this: we were, in Gloria's speech earlier today, the Mountain West, from a football perspective, takes a backseat to no one. I fully expect this conference to be competing as we expand into the CFP with the 12 teams and a lot of really good football programs. And so we're going to elevate our game in the officiating world. The one thing I can promise you is we're going to work hard. We're going to be transparent, and we're going to be accountable.
Hey, well, we really appreciate it. We're getting some great comments on the interview. We appreciate your time. Best of luck, and hopefully we can catch up with you again down the road.
Sounds good.
Mike Defee, the Mountain West coordinator of officials, did that 2017 CFP title game, 4 Big 12 championship games. A very long resume we don't have time to go through, but does a tremendous job, and that was great insight. Really appreciate that. So thanks to Mike. We'll be back with Commissioner Navarez. Gloria Navarez will join us 3:45 Mountain Time in Boise, 2:45 here in Las Vegas. So make sure you're following us on all of our social media channels, and we'll be back in about an hour and 45 minutes or so with the Commissioner of the Mountain West, Gloria Navarez. So continued live coverage, Circa Resort and Casino, thanks to Taco Bell and all of our great sponsors. We'll be back here shortly. Mountain West Media Days, Bronco Nation News, Bronco Nation News.